tennis gambling podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Fantasy. Sign up with the code SGPN, get 50% on bonus up to $1,000. Also brought to you by Edge Boost, up to $750 per month on your sports gambling transactions. Go to edgeboost.bet, promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by Rhythm, the leading from picks and props. Try it out for free for a week by going to sports.com, RATHMM. And welcome, everybody, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast from the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is currently Thursday night, roughly 9:40 p.m. Eastern Time on February 13th. I'm Scott Reichel, once again going solo for this pod. Time to get into the quarterfinals in 3 events. We have Buenos Aires, we have Delray Beach, and we have Marseille. Now, I do have to point out we are missing a couple of lines because, for example, Delray Beach has not really finished the card yet for today. Buenos Aires did, but they had a couple of matches that ended somewhat late, so some matches are missing. So point is we are a little bit, I'd say, absent for a few matches, but we are still going to cover whatever we do have. So just keep that in mind. We're going to cover whatever we can. We don't have all the matches in terms of betting lines, though, so apologies there. Just wanted to give a heads up for that. Now, before we get into the actual breakdown of the matches taking place on Friday, I want to remind you once again that you can show support for the show by subscribing on YouTube. Reminder, you can also leave a rating and a review on Spotify or Apple. So if you want to once again show support, you can jump in to the YouTube live stream or even the video format afterwards. Don't forget to hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Also, a reminder, check out the podcast audio only. If you are maybe, for example, exercising at the gym or something, and you just want the audio format, we do have the podcast available for that. So if you want to go check out the podcast, SGPN Tennis Gambling Podcast on Spotify or Apple, don't forget to leave a rating and a review. Plus, a reminder, check out the merch store on the SGPN website. We have a lot of great Tennis Gambling Podcast merch with sweatshirts, t-shirts, and mugs, all high quality, all affordable, different color combos as well. So if you do want some options for cheap, comfortable clothing, recommend going to the merch store for the Tennis Gambling Podcast merch as well as other merch with SGPN. Plus, a reminder, we have a promo with the network since football is over. NASCAR is back, though, as Daytona is taking place on Sunday. Head over to sportsgambling.com/Daytona. Sign up today for their free Daytona 500 contest to be entered in for a chance to win $100 in money, in pure cash, and $100 SGPN gift card, plus a random bonus prize. So once again, it's a free overall contest where you can win $200, $100 in the form of cash, another $100 in the form of a gift card, and a random gift. A reminder, go to sportsgambling.com/Daytona, sportsgambling.com/Daytona to sign up now. Anyway, starting off with the actual recap of what happened in the last episode. Overall, decent. I'd say the outrights were okay, as a lot of the guys that we ended up backing are still alive. For the actual lock and dog picks, had a decent episode. Starting off with the good news, won the lock. We had Sonego -1 at -115, as he was able to beat the Zandschulp in 3. Moneyline plummeted, actually, from like -150 to -125. Sonego won anyway, so it didn't really matter, as he won the first set comfortably, lost the second, but then kind of dominated the third as he won in 3. So Sonego, at the end of the day, was a much better player, I think, for the bulk of the match. The Zandschulp gets so much respect from these sportsbooks because he beat Alcaraz at the U.S. Open, and I know he forced Alcaraz to a third set about a week or two ago. He's really not that good, and I feel like he's priced like he is in, I'd say, a similar level to Sonego. I don't think he is. Sonego made the quarters of the Australian Open about a month ago. He's a very solid player, won a title last year. Zandschulp never won a title on the ATP Tour. So I think you're looking at a spot where Sonego is just overall a better player than Zandschulp, and he looked like it. But I thought the price was definitely cheap. Zandschulp's been really in fade material. I think this was the 6th straight singles match he's lost. So keep that in mind. Point is, Sonego got the job done as he won in 3. For the dog, though, picked up a loss, took the head-to-head approach, and we ended up going with the over 2.5 sets in the Comasagna and Navone match. And Navone did win in a competitive straight sets. Is what it is. Went for the shot there at +135. Faced off 11, or that was the 11th meeting. The last 3 went to a deciding set. We took a shot there with the history between them, and unfortunately, Navone was too solid as he ended up beating Comasagna in straight sets. So either way, like the price, didn't get there. Is what it is. Went for the clay specialist war, and we didn't get it. So either way, I picked up a loss, but a split nonetheless. Look for a sweep here for the Friday matches. Now, jumping into the actual comment section, Belichick, welcome back. Greg, nice to see you. Ian, how's it going? Welcome back, all of you guys. If you are listening to the podcast, by the way, you can jump in to the live stream. I'll read the comments. So once again, it's not, I'd say, frowned upon to jump in if you want to get in on the conversation. But point is, for the actual lock and dog picks, overall a decent episode. Look for a sweep here on the Friday matches. Now, starting off with Marseille, we're going to recap what happened in the round of 16. Starting off with the Marseille matches, Medvedev beat Herbert in straight sets, pretty straightforward. Struff beat Grenier in 3. Saw Medvedev kill Khachanov. Khachanov got absolutely destroyed. Altmaier continues to look good on hardcourt, beat Verton in straight sets. Bit fortunate that Korda did lose to him in the first round, but not Altmaier's problem, as he was able to win in straight sets. So Bergs ended up beating Borges in 3. Second time he's beat him in 3 on hard court this year, as he beat him in Auckland, I believe, in the semis about a month or two ago. Saul Zheng beat Hurkacz in 3. That was one of the only outrights we lost. We took Hurkacz to win Marseille, and P just could not keep the ball in play. He broke 0 times in the entire match. Really just a brutal job returning by him. Zheng is a solid player, but I feel like at the end of the day, Hurkacz just could not get enough returns in play, and he kept punting shots. So either way, Hurkacz did lose in 3. Sonego ended up winning in a walkover against Van Asch, and that was what we wanted because we ended up taking Sonego as a late ad to win the event, and we have Humbert as well, as he beat Bublik in straight sets. So overall, not too much drama on the, let's say, round of 16 front. Couple of 3-setters, Bergs against Borges. That was a pretty straightforward third set. Humbert was once again really getting destroyed. Humbert won against Bublik. Competitive straight sets, but Zheng and Hurkacz was pretty competitive. Not many insanely competitive matches for the round of 16, but either way, point is for the updated outrights, we do still have Humbert and we have Sonego to play against each other, so we're going to lose one of them, enter in the semis, but on the bright side, we do have a guaranteed semifinalist in the event, so we'll see what happens. And for Saras, for the round of 16, we've done pretty well in the event here for the outright so far. Going through the actual round of 16 matches, Zverev ended up beating Lajovic in straight sets. Cerundolo beat his brother in straight sets. Francisco is just so much better than JM Cerundolo, but he ended up winning comfortably. Sam Musetti beat Moutet in straight sets. We do have him to win the event. We have Zverev to win the event as well. So those two guys did win. You saw Martinez beat Schwartzman. I'll get back to that match in a second. In straight sets, you saw Seabold Wild, who beat Baez. That was one outright we lost. We had Baez at around 16-1, and he lost in straight sets. Desir beat Tabilo in 3. We were willing to fade Tabilo, who had not played much clay tennis recently, and he was also not in great form. So not shocked there that he lost. Saw Fonseca come back from a set down against Coria, and you ended up seeing Navone beat Rune. And we actually did like Navone's chances to beat Rune. It's why we did not take Rune for the outrights. We thought that he was potentially an upset alert in that second round, and we were right, because Navone beat him in straight sets. Now, for the Schwartzman match, which I want to get into, not going to spend too much time on it, but it's officially the final match of Schwartzman's career. Very nice career for himself. He was a former top 8 player in the world, and what made him, of course, famous for, I'd say, his overall career was his lack of height. He's one of the most successful short tennis players of all time, most successful 5'7" player of all time. So I looked it up. Ferrer was, I believe, 5'8" or 5'9", so he was a little bit taller than Schwartzman. But Schwartzman won 4 ATP titles. He made the semifinals of the French Open, actually, once. Made the quarterfinals of the French Open on 2 other occasions, and he made the U.S. Open quarterfinals twice. So, once again, a 5-time quarterfinalist, a 1-time semifinalist for a guy that was 5'7". Definitely impressive. He is the shortest player to ever reach a Masters 1000 final. He's the shortest player to reach a Grand Slam semi since 1980. So, once again, for a guy who lacked size, he had a very successful career, and he was fun to watch, former top 8 player in the world. And he's also one of the only guys that I've ever seen that was able to beat Nadal when Nadal was before, like, the very end. I believe it was in 2020. Point is, though, Schwartzman was one of the only guys to beat Nadal in a Masters 1000 clay event in straight sets. I believe in Rome, Nadal was the 9-time champion or something, and Schwartzman beat him in straight sets. So overall, a very good career for him. Got to go out in his home country. Crowd support was great, but unfortunately for him, Martinez kind of buried him. But he did send the fans home happy after the first round war that he ended up winning against Jari. Good for him. Nice career. But either way, point is his career officially came to an end. I wanted to tip the cap to Schwartzman on having a very nice career, which I feel like is not appreciated enough, as he was never really a threat to win a Grand Slam title. But at the same point, he had a very good career, and he was able to give a lot of good players problems. He gave Djokovic some problems. I don't think he ever beat Djokovic, but a couple of close matches. Beat Nadal on clay once again. He beat Thiem in the French Open, which is definitely tough to do in his prime. So overall, good career. Wanted to mention that. And once again, hopefully he finds some success outside of tennis as well. Moving on, though, to the matches in Delray. We are not officially done yet with the round 16 because Fritz is playing right now. But for the actual card, Safakina beat McDonald. McDonald had a war against Nishikori in the first round. He ran out of gas in the third, ended up losing 6-0 in the third set. Arnaldi came back from against Tien, Tien was serving for the match. I believe he was up 5-3 and ended up losing in a final set breaker. Opelka ended up winning the first set, lost to Nakashima in 3. Nori beat Rinderknech. I mentioned Rinderknech before, not a fan at all. You saw a couple retirements, though. Mickelson lost the first set to Momo, and then he ended up getting injured and having to quit. So Mickelson beat, once again, Momo in basically a set and a half. So Kekmanovic get a walkover against Nishioka. That's why we ended up not taking Nishioka. Thought that after the shoulder issue in the last event, he was potentially damaged goods. He ended up beating Vukic, but decided he couldn't continue. So he had a nice job, I'd say, avoiding potential catastrophe there, as we did not back the injured player, despite how good the draw looked. And Giron, who we ended up taking as an outright, ended up beating Quinn in straight sets. So for the outrights in Delray, we have Fritz, who has not played a match yet. He's in the middle of his match against Boo. We have Giron at 12-1, and we also have Kekmanovic at 12-1. They play against each other as well. So like the matchups that we ended up mentioning in Marseille, we do have a guaranteed semifinalist in Delray, hopefully 2 if Fritz gets there. But Giron and Kekmanovic will play against each other, and we will lose one outright. So keep that in mind. But overall, a decent episode for the outrights, and now it's time to move on into the matches on Friday. We'll do Marseille, then Buenos Aires, then we'll do Delray, going in chronological order. Before that, though, I want to remind once again that we are brought to you by EdgeBoost, because SGPN partnered up with EdgeBoost, the premier Visa debit card for bettors. EdgeBoost card allows you the ability to avoid the hassle of having your card denied at the sportsbook, DFS site, sweepstakes site, racetrack, or casino. You can also earn a bunch of cashback rewards, $750 per month cashback rewards when you use the EdgeBoost card. You also know your money's safe, as the card is FDIC insured, and the best part, no credit checks, and it's completely free. Sign up today. Use the promo code SGPN to get instant Tier 2 status and better cashback rewards. Once again, you could use the link or use the actual website, edgeboost.bet. Promo code SGPN, edgeboost.bet, promo code SGPN. We're also brought to MyBookie. MyBookie was an original partner, I believe, of SGPN, and they are back with us. MyBookie is a great place to bet on every sport. You could also bet on props for every game, and they have the live dealer casino. MyBookie accepts customers from a ton of locations. Easy deposit and lightning fast payouts with crypto. You could also, once again, head to mybookie.ag, promo code SGPN, for a 100% deposit match up to $1,000 and a $10 casino chip. MyBookie.ag, promo code SGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Finish recapping what happened in round 16 in Buenos Aires, Delray, and Marseille. Now it's time to move on into the matchups taking place on Friday. Starting off with the matches taking place we'll do Marseille first, actually. So for Marseille, the first match on the card, you have a matchup between Bergs and Zhang. Not the matchup we thought we'd be getting for the actual event in the quarters. But either way, point is Bergs is minus 140. Zhang is plus 120. For the over-under, you have 23.5 games, plus money, though, on the over. For the spread, minus 1.5 for Bergs, plus 1.5 for Zhang. The over 2.5 sets is plus 130. For straight sets, you have Bergs in straight sets at plus 185. You have Zhang to win in straight sets at plus 260. For the head-to-head, they faced off before, and Bergs has been getting the better of Zhang. In fact, he's won the last 2 meetings in straight sets. Faced off in the US Open qualifying a couple years ago. In 2022, Zhang did win. Faced off on clay. In 2023, Bergs did win. Faced off in Shanghai last year, and you saw Bergs win that one in straight sets. So point is, Bergs has been playing pretty well lately. Made a final earlier this year as he lost to Monfils in Auckland, but he's looked sharp. Beat, once again, a relative unknown French guy in the first round, ended up beating Borges in 3 in the second match. As for Zhang, though, had a marathon win against Hallis and a marathon win against Hurkacz. So fatigue could be an issue for Zhang in this one. But the point is, his serve's been very solid. I think Bergs is a good player, too. I like the over in this one. If you could find 22.5 at anything, I'd say below minus 130. I don't mind it. I see a close matchup here. I think it could go 3 sets, though. I can see Zhang winning a breaker with the serve, but his return game is not consistent on a regular. I'd say it's not consistent enough for me to have confidence in him winning it outright. I think plus 120 is a good deal, though, so I would go for the dog if I had to pick a side. Maybe a team total over for one of these guys at 12.5, but I think that you're looking at a close matchup. I'll go with the over 2.5 sets here. Think Zhang can make it interesting, but I am concerned about fatigue after having back-to-back 3-set marathons, so I think that Bergs might outlast him, but give me a 3-set marathon to start the card in Marseille. Moving on to the next match. Going to look at a matchup between Sonego and Humbert. Once again, a matchup between 2 outrights that we have. Humbert's minus 250. Sonego's plus 210. For the spread here, minus 3 for Humbert, plus 3 for Sonego. For the over-under, you have 22.5. For the set spread here, you have Humbert in straight sets at even money. You have Sonego to win a set at minus 130. The over 2.5 sets is plus 155. So they faced off 6 times. very competitive. In fact, it is actually tied 3-3 in the head-to-head. Now, they faced off a couple of times last year, both meetings on clay, and they split. They were both on clay, though, so I'm kind of going to toss those out. Now, faced off in Beijing in 2023, Humbert 1-3. Faced off once again a couple more times on clay, but they faced off twice on hard court, and Humbert did win both those 1-3 and 1 in straight sets. One of them was dated, though, in 2021, so they have not really faced off recently on hard court, but Humbert has been the better hard court player when they get together. Now, Sonego has played well, and I do want to point that out. Made the quarters of the Australian Open, ended up losing to Rune in the first round of Rotterdam in a close match, beat Dzanchop in the first round, and a walkover in the second round. Humbert, though, I think has looked objectively better. Beat Fonseca in straight sets in the Davis Cup, and we know how good he's playing, and he's been looking sharp on clay in Buenos Aires. He also beat Bublik in straight sets. I know Bublik is not really playing great tennis, but still a straight set win nonetheless on a hard court indoor against a good server. So Humbert did well in the Australian Open, lost his Zverev in 4, beat Fonseca, who's one of the hottest players in the actual tour for the up-and-coming teenager, and he ended up beating Bublik in straight sets. I think that Humbert's going to win. The question is, do I see Sonego winning a set or making it competitive? I think one set will be competitive, so I think I am going to go with Humbert team total over for this one. I think Sonego can actually take advantage with the serve and volley, and I do think that he can come to the net, be aggressive, and find some openings. I think Humbert will win eventually, but I can see it being close as well. I don't mind the team total over for Humbert. I think that he's the better player, and I think that with the home crowd behind him as defending champion, he should look sharp enough to win this in what should be 2 or 3 sets. But give me Humbert team total over. I think Sonego can force a 7-5 or 7-6, or maybe even win a set altogether, and you get a 3-set marathon. Give me the over for the team total for Humbert in that one. Moving on to the next matchup, you have another unexpected quarterfinal matchup between Medjedovic and Altmaier. So for this one, Medjedovic, decent favorite, -220. Altmaier's +190. For the spread, you have -3 for Medjedovic, +3 for Altmaier. The over-under is 22.5. For the set spread here, you have Medjedovic in straight sets at +110. Altmaier to win a set's -140. The over 2.5 sets is a +145. Now, Altmaier, I've said many times over the last week or two, he's a clay guy. However, he hasn't looked like it because he's been good. Now, looking at the actual path for Altmaier so far, saw him make a good run in Rotterdam as he ended up beating Kovacevic and Fies, did lose to de Minaur in straight sets. Beat Nardi, beat Virtanen. Pretty easy draw, I'd say, for this event because Nardi, I don't think is really worth a damn, and Virtanen ended up beating Korda. I think Korda would agree is the tougher opponent, but still a nice straight set win in both those matches. So Medjedovic has been good too. Beat a relative unknown Belgian in the first round and ended up beating Khachanov. Khachanov looked awful, but it's still a good win against a hard court, I'd say, specialist like Khachanov. So I do want to point that out. I think that Khachanov looked extremely underwhelming. So I don't want to say it was 100% Khachanov, but still a nice dominant win. Medjedovic, though, is the much better server. So I think you're looking at a spot where he should have a pretty, I'd say, easy go of it when it comes to comparing breakpoint chances. Think that Medjedovic will do a better job of holding serve. I think he's going to win. The problem is, do I want to lay -220? No, I do not. They have no head-to-head history here. Think he'll win, but do I really see much value on anything here? I'll go with the under 23.5 at -140 to avoid a 3-setter or potentially 2 very competitive sets. I think one of these guys could win in straight sets. A really tough match to find value on. You could argue Altmaier based on current form, but Medjedovic, I think, is the better hardcourt player. He made the next gen final a couple years ago, and he made a final last year, did lose to Chapo in that. So he's a pretty good hardcourt player. I think that once again, he can win in straight sets, but I think you're looking at a decent spot for an under. One guy who wins in, I'd say, 2 sets that are not complete wars, and you're in a good spot. I'll go with the under 23.5 games for my pick on that one. I'm moving on to the next match on the actual card here. This one, we don't have lines on the book that we're looking at, but I see lines, some vague lines here. Medvedev, I see -500. I see Struff at +350. Medvedev is 8-2 lifetime. He has been very good against him in the head-to-head. Medvedev, in fact, if you want to actually go all the way back, has won 3 straight. And on hard court, they have faced off a grand total, 2, 3, 4, 5. Faced off 5 times, and Medvedev's 4-1. Faced off in this event, actually. 2017, Medvedev did win in 3. Very dated, doesn't really matter. So Struff has been fine. Beat Guinard in a competitive straight sets, ended up beating Grenier in a marathon 3. Medvedev, though, played 1 match, beat Herbert comfortably, only dropping 6 games. Tough to find value. I'll go Medvedev in straight sets. I'm not going to bet this, though. I mentioned before Medvedev's a guy that I can't really trust, but I think that he's better than Struff, and I do think that Struff has been a little bit underwhelming lately, just based on his fitness, and I do wonder after the 3-setter that he had yesterday, will Medvedev take him to deep waters, and will Struff, I'd say, overcome potential, I'd say, lapse in focus and maybe an overall letdown, I'd say, physically, based on the war he had yesterday. I don't think so. I think Medvedev will make the match long. I think Struff will punt errors all over the court. Give me Medvedev in straight sets for that one. Apologies, I have no lines, but that's all I got. Moving on, though, to Buenos Aires. For this one, we are missing a couple of matches. I see no lines the Musetti match and no lines on the Fonseca and Navone match. Just keep that in mind. However, we do have lines on Seabold Wild and De Gere. For this one, De Gere is a decent favorite, actually, as De Gere is around -140. Seabold Wild's +120. Game spread -1.5 for De Gere, +1.5 for Seabold Wild. For the over-under, you have 23 or 22.5. For the set spread, you have straight sets for De Gere at +180. Straight sets for Seabold Wild at +260. The over 2.5 sets is around +125. So for the head-to-head, faced off a couple times. In fact, they faced off 5 times. De Gere won the first 3, and then they faced off twice last year on clay, and Seabold Wild did win both those. So point is, you've seen a little bit of a turning point in the head-to-head, where Seabold Wild was 0-3, and then he was able to eventually figure out the De Gere puzzle as he won the last 2 matches. So looking at the overall paths here, Seabold Wild's been good. Beat Diaz Acosta, who has not been playing great tennis lately, but he was the defending champion at the event, so still a good win there. Beat Baez in straight sets as well. Tough crowd, beating 2 Argentinians back-to-back in Argentina. So definitely not the easiest spots there, but he got by. As for De Gere, he has beaten Tabilo in 3, beat Muller in straight sets, and then beating Coria in qualifying and Trungelliti in qualifying. So for the match here, do I think De Gere should be -140? Hell no. I think this price is extremely disrespectful to Seabold Wild. He had a pretty competitive match against Diaz Acosta in the first round, but that was once again his first clay match of the season, and you're looking at a defending champion who is not exactly the easiest opponent to face in your first clay match of the season, and he got by it as he won in 3. Dropped the first set, though, won the next 4 sets. So ended up beating Baez, who we know can be very dangerous on clay, won multiple ATP titles on clay, so a very good win there, 6-3, 6-4. De Gere had a war against Tabilo, who has been underwhelming lately, and I believe he also had not played a clay match all year. De Gere, though, has the, I'd say, experience on the courts because he was able to go through qualifying, which gave some extra time to get accustomed to the courts in Buenos Aires. But Tabilo, though, has been an absolute catastrophe. In fact, looking at the actual results for Tabilo, he lost to De Gere, lost to Baena, lost to Basaveretti, lost to Bonzi, lost to Tsitsipas. He's lost 5 straight. The last win he had was in October of last year. So not exactly the ringing endorsement you're looking for when you win your first match against a, I'd say, ranked opponent in the event, and it goes to a marathon. Tabilo might have played a little bit better, but still the point is, and not exactly the form I'm looking for, when you are a guy who's going up against a guy in free fall and you have a final set tiebreak compared to a guy who was able to beat a clay specialist in straight sets. Think that Seabold Wild's alive to win it. I think that this price is disrespectful. Give me Seabold Wild here on the money line at +120. I think the price is pretty nice. Moving on to the next match I mentioned before, we have no lines in it. We have Fonseca against Navone. Now, it's actually a rematch of last year, faced off in Rio de Janeiro. You might remember that was Fonseca's first ever event with a win on the ATP Tour, as he was able to beat Fees in the first round. Then he beat, who the hell did he beat? I want to say he ended up beating, I'm drawing a Garin, I think. I think he beat Garin in the next round. Then he ended up losing to Navone. He won the first set. I think he was up a break in the second, then physically fell apart as Navone beat him in 3. Now, Fonseca's been good. He ended up beating Echeverry in straight sets and ended up beating Coria in 3. As for Navone, he's been solid too. Ended up beating Rune in straight sets and beat Comasagna in straight sets. So Navone, I think, is dangerous, and that's why I actually liked him to beat Rune when I went through the draw for all the guys in Buenos Aires last episode. Navone, though, I think can make it interesting. The problem is Fonseca is so much better now than he was last year. And that was one of his first ever events in the ATP Tour. So now he's seen a bunch of events. He won the Next Gen Finals as well. I think he'll win. However, I think that Navone can extract unforced errors, and I question if Fonseca will start going for the crazy, I'd say, power shots that'll start resulting in unforced errors. So I think I am going to go with the marathon here. They faced off twice in their careers, ended up seeing both those matches go to 3. One was in 2022. So Fonseca was like 16 at the time. I don't know if that's actually a fair comp, but both those matches were in Brazil. So you have seen Navone handle tough environments against Fonseca before. Now it's the opposite, as Fonseca is traveling to Argentina to take on Navone. But Navone, I think, will have crowd support. Fonseca, those had some fans in the stands from Brazil. They have the Fonseca t-shirts and the flags that are waving too. But I think I am going to go with the over in this one, over 2.5 sets. I don't know what the line's going to be, but this screams marathon to me. And if you ended up seeing Fonseca lose a set to Coria, I think Navone is a similar player stylistically to Coria. I think he might be better, actually. But the point is, I see a close matchup here featuring a lot of long rallies. If Fonseca hits his spots, he'll win. But the problem is, I do think Navone will force Fonseca to hit his spots. And if he doesn't, you can see some potential unraveling like we saw in the match last year. But I am going to go with Fonseca. I'll go with in 3 for my thoughts on this one, but give me a close matchup that should be pretty fun. Moving on to what I think is the match of the clay slate, you have Zverev against Cerundolo. Now, Zverev's a massive favorite. He's minus 265. Cerundolo is plus 225. For the spread here, minus 3.5 for Zverev, plus 3.5 for Cerundolo. The over-under in game is set at 22.5. For the set spread, you have Zverev in straight sets to even money. You have Cerundolo to win a set at minus 130. For the over 2.5 sets, you have plus 140. Now, they faced off on clay before in Madrid last year, and Cerundolo killed them. He actually won 6-3, 6-4. So look at the overall path so far. Cerundolo's looked very good. Ended up beating his brother in straight sets in the last round. Beat Delray in straight sets in the first round. Delray has not really been good since winning his first title. I believe that's the first ever event he was ever in the ATP level, and he won a title. I think that was that Cordoba, I think, last year. The point is, he's not really been good since. So not exactly the greatest competition. Cerundolo, though, the other one, his brother, can be dangerous on clay if you underestimate him. So still a nice win there. He was off a 3-set war against Barchuga in the first round. So that was a potential fatigue issue. But still, point is a nice win there for Cerundolo. As for Zverev, he only played one match, beat Lajovic in a competitive straight set, 6-4, 6-4. So for this matchup, I think it can get interesting. I'm not going to pick Zverev to coast. I think Cerundolo is actually live to win it. Am I picking him to win it? No. But I think I do like the over in this one. I don't mind Zverev team total over at 12.5. I think you're looking at a competitive set. Maybe Zverev wins in straight sets, a 7-6, 6-3, for example. And as long as you get the one competitive set, you're in good shape for the team total. I think Cerundolo, though, can hang in there. The fact that he's minus 130 to win a set tells you that the books think he's very live and that he's looked very good so far in the event. I'm going to go with the over 2.5 sets at plus 140. Give me a close matchup. I think Cerundolo is actually live to win it. But I think that Cerundolo eventually falls a bit short. Maybe a final set breaker, but I see a very close match. I like the over. I like the dog to keep it close. Maybe the plus 3.5 games there. But I see a very close battle between those two guys. Moving on to the matches in... I skipped the Musetti and Martinez match. I have no lines on this one. We saw Martinez beat Schwartzman in straight sets, ended up beating De Zoomer in 3 after losing the first set 6-0. As for Musetti, though, he looked great against Moutet. Nothing else to add. I think Musetti kills him. I don't really have much else to add there. I think Musetti is just a much better clay player than Martinez. Martinez beat Schwartzman, who officially retired after a 3-set marathon against Jari the day prior. A very good spot for Martinez. He had a 3-set marathon, but that was divided up amongst some weather stoppages. So he only had to play for about... 5 minutes to finish the breaker in the first round against De Zoomer. So point is, I thought it was a decent spot for Martinez. He ended up winning that first round match actually on, trying to find out the exact day. So he ended up winning that match on Wednesday. So overall, I think he he allegedly played 2 matches yesterday. Not really. I'm messing up my days here. So he ended up beating De Zoomer on Wednesday. Then he beat Schwartzman 6-2, 6-2 on Thursday. So not the worst scheduling spot when you factor in the break they had there in the third set, where he got to kind of collect himself after about, I don't even know, 6 hours off maybe in between. But either way, point is Musetti played 1 match here. He was great against Moutet. Was really never threatened. He, once again, if you forgot, won the bronze medal in the Olympics on clay. So he's better on clay. Give me Musetti in straight sets. I see a pretty standard 6-3, 6-4 type match. Give Musetti, though, to win. And I think we eventually do end up getting these Zverev-Musetti semifinal match. Maybe we end up getting Cerundolo instead, but should be a very fun collection of matches there in Buenos Aires on Thursday. Moving on to Delray. Once again, we are a bit short on matches in Delray because Fritz is still playing. However, we have 2 matches to talk about. We have Mickelson taking on Norrie. Mickelson's minus 145. Norrie's plus 125 for the spread. Minus 2 for Mickelson, plus 2 for Norrie. For the over and under in games, you have 22.5. For the over under sets, you have over 2.5 at plus 125. The under 2.5 is minus 155. For straight sets, you have Norrie to win in straight sets at around plus 300. You have Mickelson to win in straight sets at plus 160. Now, you might remember they faced off earlier this year, actually, and Norrie won, as Norrie was able to beat Mickelson in Dallas in 3, whilst the first set came back and won. Norrie, though, has been good, ended up beating Svaja and beat Rinderknech in straight sets in the first 2 matches, but it is an immediate rematch for they faced off about a week ago exactly in Dallas. Now, as for Mickelson, very fortunate because he had a bye in the first round, then the lose in the first set to Momo, and then won via retirement in the second set. So Mickelson, I thought, didn't really look great in that first match, and then he got lucky that Momo was injured. So I think Norrie's live to win it. I find it weird that Mickelson's that big of a favorite. Minus 145 is pretty steep for a guy that lost the head-to-head meeting a week ago. Now, on the other hand, you could argue that it's an immediate revenge spot where Mickelson ended up losing, and then he'll get revenge and he'll win this one. Maybe, but I think the line's a bit off here. I think it should be closer to minus 120, in my opinion. Mickelson being favored, I can understand, but Norrie's been fine. I feel like Norrie's been, once again, playing better tennis. He has not been, at his peak level yet, but he's looked pretty sharp. I see a lot of breaks. I see a very close match. I don't mind the over 2.5 sets again. We saw him have a marathon in Dallas a week ago, but I think you're looking at a spot where Norrie's pretty live to win it. I think the price is very, very interesting. Mickelson, once again, didn't look great against Momo. He dropped the set. I feel like he's vulnerable. 145 is pretty high, in my opinion. I think Norrie is in a good spot where he can keep this match competitive. I don't mind 2 games, 2.5 games. I think it'll be close. Give me Norrie for the plus games here and maybe the over 2.5 sets as well. But I think minus 145 just has no value on Mickelson. I'll go with Norrie instead. Moving on to the next matchup, you have Giron taking on Kecmanovic. For this one, a very close matchup expected based on the odds. Giron's minus 120. Kecmanovic is even money. For the spread, minus half a game for Giron, plus half a game for Kecmanovic. The over-under is at 22.5. For the sets over-under, you have 2.5 at plus 125 to the over. Under's minus 150. For the set spread, you have Kecmanovic in straight sets at around plus 210. Giron in straight sets at plus 220. For the head-to-head, absolute war when these guys get together. 3 career meetings. Faced off in Paris last year, 3-set marathon. Giron ended up winning in 3. Delray 2 years ago, so they have faced off on this court before. Kecmanovic won 7-6, 6-3. Face of Indian Wells 2019, that went to 3 sets, final set breaker, and Giron did win in 3. So very, very close head-to-head history between them. Giron looked good against Quinn. I don't think Quinn's any good, but still a win nonetheless, and he ended up having a bye in the first round. So pretty, once again, easy draw so far for him. As for, once again, the path for Kecmanovic ended up beating the likes of Nishioka via walkover, so he didn't actually have to play, and he beat Gojo in straight sets, who's been kind of a mess since making the U.S. Open run he did, ended up having a couple years ago. So I think it'll be a close matchup here. I like the over. I see a very competitive match. I think that the spread is pretty accurate here for the minus half a game, plus half a game. I think the money line's also accurate, a minus 120 for Giron. I would put Giron as a slight favorite because it's in America and because he ended up beating him in 2 out of the 3 in the head-to-head. But I see a very, very close match. I'm not going to go with one guy to dominate. Once again, we have an outright, no matter what, getting eliminated in this match because we have both guys to win the title. So I like both guys based on form. But I think Giron looked a little bit better as far as I'm concerned. It's a really, really small sample. But I'll go with Giron to win a 3-set marathon. Give me a war. That's kind of where I'm going with this one. For the side, though, I don't see any value. I'll go with the over instead. Give me a close war between them that ends up being what I think will be around 3 hours, maybe 2:30. But give me a close matchup there. That's my thoughts for that one. Moving on to the last match that we ended up having. Without any lines, though, we have Arnaldi against Nakashima. Now, Nakashima beat him in the Next Gen Finals a couple years ago in 5 sets, but that was first to 4 in each set. Doesn't matter. I'm tossing it out. For the path on Nakashima, ended up beating Trotter in the first round, ended up beating Opelka in the next match. As for Arnaldi, he had an absolute war against Tien, was down 5-3 in the third set, came back and won in a final set breaker. But either way, a 7-6, 4-6, 7-6 match. that took around 2 hours and 49 minutes. Think he'll be exhausted for this one. Nakashima's pretty annoying to back because the unforced errors can get high. Same thing with Arnaldi, though. I think I'm going to go with Nakashima. Not sure what the price is going to be, though, so I can't really give out an official play, on that one. But I think I'm looking at a spot where Nakashima is in a better spot physically because we know that Opelka, even though it went to 3 sets, Opelka ends points very quickly with the serve. That match, by comparison, by the way, once again, 2 hours, 49 minutes against Tien, and Tien is a serious rallier. For Nakashima, in that match against Opelka, that was 3 sets. It was only an hour 52. So he spent less time on the court by a decent amount. I think Arnaldi might be exhausted after what happened against Tien. Good spot for Nakashima. I'll take him in front of the American crowd here to get the job done in the quarterfinals on Friday. I see Timothy mentioned in question here for the over 2-set matches. Do I want to do a same game parlay for the team totals? I thought about it. I know it worked out well for the match we had with Rublev and with Hurkacz. I feel like if I'm going to take that, though, I need 2 good servers. My concern is that you end up getting a match where one guy gets blown out like 6-2 in a set. And at that point, you have problems. I feel like for clay, I would not take that because you can get very lopsided sets on clay. For reference, I think that if Cerundolo and Zverev go 3, I would consider the team total over. But the problem is at 12.5 for both guys. It's really tough on clay because you get a lot of lopsided sets. You barely get any tie breaks unless you get usually a break or 2 per guy in a set. So my advice for the team total same game parlay, I would avoid clay for that one. For hard court, though, you can make an argument for it. If I was looking at a match, for example, that I would consider taking that in for tomorrow's card, Tekmanovic and Giron would be one that I would consider. Because I think that both guys will serve well. I can see a lot of holds. That's an example of a match I would take. If you want to go for Bergs and Zhang, I don't mind that either, because both guys are pretty good at serving. Zhang is not a great returner either. So I think that would be my main approach. Look for good servers and take that approach. But for clay, I can't do it. I don't see any value with clay when you could have one guy getting blown out 6-2 or 6-1. And at that point, you have a serious sweat on your hands for the team total over for one guy. So to answer your question, I'll skip that on clay. But for hardcore, maybe a couple of examples, but I didn't see many that I was tempted by for the card on Friday. Anyway, time for the lock and dog picks of the show. For that, though, remember once again that we are brought to you by, what is our next sponsor here? Underdog Fantasy, because they have all your items the pick menu. They have the NBA, they have the NHL, college basketball, whatever sport you can think of, tennis as well. You can cash in and win with Underdog Pick'em. Reminder that they also have a great deal with us. If you sign up with the promo code SGPN, you can claim a special convert $10 up to 1K bonus cash on fantasy promo code SGPN. We're also brought to by Rhythm. If you want to try betting models, we can help you do that because Rhythm will help you build models either from scratch. You can copy from the leaderboard or Rhythm build one for you. So once again, if you want to try out betting models, you can do that while getting AI picks. They have NFL picks, NFL props, college basketball, and the NBA. Rhythm does have it all. And a reminder, you can also claim a free trial for a week by going to sports.com. It's Rhythm, sports.com, RITHMM. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Scan Podcast. Finished breaking down the quarterfinals in Buenos Aires, Delray, and Marseille. For the lock and dog picks, for the lock, I'm actually going to go with the last match we talked about, or one of the last ones. I'll go with the matchup in Delray between Giron and Kekmanovic. Give me the over 22.5 games here at minus 115. Mainly because of how this match is priced and the head-to-head history. Giron is minus 120. Kekmanovic is plus, I'd say, 100. Very close battle expected, and I agree. I think both guys have looked sharp so far in the event. And the head-to-head has been an absolute collection of battles. So 2 of the 3 career meetings did not end in straight sets. 6 of the 8 career sets ended 7-5 or 7-6. They have had a bunch of individual sets that have come down to the very end, and I can see that happening again here in this one. I see a very close matchup here. 2 guys playing well. Face off on this court 2 years ago was close. I see once again another battle featuring a lot of holds. Give me the over 22.5 games as my lock at minus 115 in the Giron match as my lock. For my dog, I am going to go to the clay slate. I'm going to go to a matchup that I mentioned before between Desir and Seabold Wild. Give me Seabold Wild money line at plus 125. Face off last year on clay. Seabold Wild won both meetings. So I do like the fact that you saw the head-to-head history kind of swing in favor of Seabold Wild. Desir has been streaky over the years. He's playing good tennis, but I do think Seabold Wild's face off against better competition. You could argue based on overall skill, Tabilo and Muller are better. However, on clay, Diaz Acosta, defending champion. Baez is the best clay player of the 4 guys that I mentioned. So based on the overall, I'd say, environment, beating 2 Argentinians in Argentina, tough environment there for Seabold Wild. He has not dropped a set. He's been very good. You might remember he beat Medvedev in the French Open, first round a couple years ago. Good clay player. Baez, though, very good win there. Diaz Acosta, not easy. He's been in bad form, but still defending champion. Good win nonetheless. Dabilo's been a mess, so that ranking means nothing to me. And Mueller, I think's fine. Didn't play much clay tennis of the season. Did win a title on hard court earlier this year. But based on the clay schedule, I think that Seabold Wild face off against arguably better competition, and he's a little sharper in my opinion. Desir did go through qualifying, but he had a 3-set marathon against Dabilo on Thursday. Maybe not the best scheduling spot, but I see a close matchup here. But with Seabold Wild winning both meetings on clay last year, plus 125, I think is a great price. It's mostly for value. Desir, I think, should be minus 115, maybe a pick 'em, but plus 125 is a great price. I'll take that now before the line moves. So once again, the plays here for the quarterfinals, the lock's going to be on Giron over 22.5 games against Kecmanovic at minus 115. For my dog, give me Seabold Wild money line at plus 125. For the updated schedule, though, for the next episode, because of the semifinals and because of the late actual schedule for Buenos Aires and Delray, we will be skipping those 2 events for the semis. Instead, we're going to talk about Marseille only for the semis. I would record at 2 in the morning if I really could, but to be honest, I really don't want to. So instead of waiting for lines to come up for Buenos Aires and for Delray, I will skip those. I will go with Marseille instead. So only going to preview 2 matches in the next episode. I'll recap what happened in the matches and the quarters for these events, but for the semis, I'm not going to wait for lines to drop. I'll go with Marseille only for the semis. Until next time, find me on Twitter at Reichel Radio. Find me on the NBA show. Find me on the MLB show. Reminder, you can also find me on a bunch of podcasts in the network. Besides that, Propcast coming up for the baseball season. Reminder, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Also, don't forget to leave a rating and review on Spotify or Apple. Don't forget to check the merch store as well for Tennis Camp Podcast merch. Till next time, good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.